Hi, Gail Fugit, President and CEO of the Advertising Research Foundation. I'm here with Ben Smith, who's the head of experiences at Hulu, which is a really interesting title, probably could really cover the gamut. But what I really want to start with is you were in the Peace Corps. And so I'm really interested in, people are all talking about the disruption and the challenges in advertising today, right? I'm really interested in how you got from your background in the Peace Corps to CES 2016, right?
It's a long story, but I think
we have time.
For me, I think there are two kinds of people I've learned that join the Peace Corps. They're like everyone that joins the Peace Corps has a native and kind of intuitive sense of helping people. And then there are adventurers, and then there are people.
Gail?
Yeah.
I got a lot of noise. Can we take it from the top on this?
No. Really?
Yeah. I had so much noise back there, I had interference.
Oh, but it was so good.
I know, we'll take it from the top.
Oh. Okay.
Wow, you caught me so off guard with that too.
It was great.
It was.
Well, you can fake being off. Guard.
I will.
It sort of obliterated you or something. All right?
Okay, so
So what do you want to do?
will you have an adjustment so that doesn't happen again?
I just adjusted it.
Okay, good.
All right. So you want to take a look into this camera right here.
How about
for
the
intro?
stapling? Is that going to bother us?
No, that's fine.
You want me to look in that camera?
In terms of your intro, this camera instead of this one.
Oh, okay. That you
You're talking
changed.
into this camera.
You changed it. Okay.
It's the same camera as yours.
All right. Well, I'm in a different chair then. Okay. All right. Well, we're having learning curve today. Day 2. Okay.
Take it.
All right. Hi, Gail Fugit, President and CEO of the Advertising Research Foundation, and I'm here with Ben Smith, who is the Vice President of Experiences at Hulu. And it's just so great to be here with you. Now, I want to kind of kick it off with a question for you. Everyone's talking about disruption and how difficult the world of advertising is and marketing and business, but you were in the Peace Corps. So
Yes.
How do you find yourself here in CES in 2016, and how do you compare like the adversity that had to have been pretty disruptive to what's going on today?
Yeah, it's an interesting
Tell me your
question.
story.
It's a long story. I think it starts with why people go to the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
And what I have found is there's kind of two kinds of people that go. There are adventurers, and there are people who are altruists.
Yeah.
Everyone has a sense of they want to
Out
make
to
the
help
world a better
people.
place. That's right.
Yeah.
It's compulsive. They can't help it.
Yes.
Interestingly, I met my wife there, and
Oh,
and
really?
that's what she is. She
Okay.
is going to make the world a better place.
Okay. Yeah, I heard people have helium hands. Somebody said that to me, Gail. You have helium hands. Like you just volunteer. You can't help yourself. Anybody asks you to do anything, you're like, ah.
Yeah. So, and for me, it's there's a kind of deeper sense of that I came in with and certainly learned there and got reinforced with is that the way you make the world a better place is by starting with the people closest to you, and kind of work out in circles there. And I think and you think about times of disruption, it's how all disruptions start. They start with some small locus of energy, and then there's a second follower and a third follower and a fourth follower, and then things change. So, a lot of the lessons I learned there was to,
Where were you?
I was in Mauritania in North Africa.
Okay.
So just south of Morocco, just north of Senegal in the Sahara Desert.
Wow.
It was an interesting experience
How
to be.
long were you there?
We were there for just about 2 years. It's an interesting kind of world when you're 20 years old and no one speaks English, your native language, within hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
So, that's another skill I think I really learned there.
They kind of do not a lot of phoning home and...
No, in fact, this is the pre-internet era, too, when I was there, to date myself a little bit. So, mail to the United States was 11 days one way.
Oh, my goodness.
So if you wanted to send a letter home to your friends or your family and get a response, your best case scenario was 22 days.
Oh, my gosh.
So, but it was nice to have that experience then in the world of today where you can communicate with, the space station instantly.
Right.
I saw on the news the other day the space station, someone called it a wrong number.
Oh, seriously?
And that's phenomenal to me. It's only, 20, 21 years ago that I was in a place where it was, truly disconnected. And that world generally doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So, how did that experience how did that kind of catalyze who you are and your approach to business? You've had such an interesting career. You were one of the creators or founders, developers of Xbox.
That's right.
And I have to say, so my son, I'll date myself too. My son's 26, and I got to say, the Xbox was the most valued item in our household for a lot of years.
It's a great
so
question.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
On his behalf.
Half the time I apologize for that.
I know,
half the time I'm excited.
Yeah, it all turned out okay. He's going to be a vet.
Great. The thing that I really learned there is in the Peace Corps that I do today, and certainly was a pivotal in how we designed Xbox, was to really look at how people live their lives.
Yes.
To find out how you could make their life better. It's like, what is that unmet need that no one can articulate, that they need an experience, they need a device, they need a piece of software, and you only get that by watching what they're doing, and then building something, showing it to them, and it either works or it doesn't work.
Right.
So it's in a world, especially it's important now.
You did that ethnography with kids?
Yes.
Get down on the living room floor with all those.
And have them describe their
boys.
world in their terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, was the continuum of actually being a product designer, is observing how people live and where you could build something that, whether it's commercial or not commercial, that would genuinely benefit their lives, because that's where your success is going to come from. And that's the same thing I do now at Hulu.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this interesting thing, and I don't know if you ever heard this, but at that point we were studying kids and social media when I was at General Mills, and at that point in time, the insight was that the kids thought that screen was reality, and this is not. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I spent a lot of time on this, particularly in Xbox, where the principle behind Xbox Live, the way that you play games online, was rooted out of the problem that we had, where initially all of our customers were 13 to 20 years old, and after they kind of turned 18, 19, 20, they stopped playing.
Correct.
Because the way that what was important to them wasn't so much even the games that they were playing, it was the social experience they're having with their best friend on the couch.
Parallel, exactly.
So for us, hey, all of these, our audience are going to go to college someday. They're going to move away.
Yeah.
What's the experience we create for them?
Yeah.
And that's where Xbox Live came in, where it's fast, it focuses on the voice communication in real time.
Yes.
So, that's where I think it is reality. And increasingly, I think we went through a world where people had digital identities that were separate from their physical identities, and I think that world has largely collapsed now. Where we've broken that down. There aren't alter egos. There's few places of anonymity left. It's more about who you are, and that presence is kind of fused together. So when I look at people like my daughter, my oldest, who's 11, for her, that is her operating reality of how the world works. Communication is always instant. It's always available. The kind of idea of like a diverse set of opinions for her is just orders of magnitude larger than it ever was for me.
Yeah.
And it's right there. It's instant.
How does she assimilate that?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think she even assimilates it. It's things
it's just coming at.
It's how she lives her life. So I remember there was a 2-week span. I think she was about 4 years old. The first occasion, she said to me, she said, "Let's go. What's the picture on the computer today?" I was like, I wonder what she's talking about. What is the picture on the computer today? So I said, "Why don't you go show me?" And she goes and she wiggles the mouse, and it was the Bing homepage, and it was the picture of the day rotation. So for her, the computer wasn't the physical object.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the web browser. It was a search engine.
The start of the day. Yep.
And it was part of her routine every day. I was like, that is a fascinating universe and just relationship with information. And then 2 weeks later, and this is a great story, we at Xbox, we were just moving into new buildings, and they built an artist built a sculpture, and the metaphor was a wave of sound, and it was a physical wave about 12 feet tall, built out of melted records, LPs.
Wow.
And my daughter said, Sam said, what are those? And I was like, oh, those are called records. That's what, when I was your age, that's what we played music on. And she looked at me and she looked at the statue. She looked at me and she looked at the sculpture and said, "But how did you fit it in the computer?"
Oh, I love it.
And I almost physically fell down.
Right?
And that was the the world has changed
You
on
get
me.
your head wrapped around it.
So
Yeah.
for her, it's all the reality of the world. We've lived in the transition of this kind of digital world. For her, she's a digital native.
Well, I really like your point, though, on imprinting, because I think one of my personal early imprints was the music from public radio at lunchtime, because my dad would come home, and he was a professor, and they would listen to that every single lunchtime at noon. And I think, that I still think, I'm curious if you agree that that still is pervasive in branding and advertising today, that you can kind of imprint. And is that an approach that, Hulu, how are you approaching experiences and branding at Hulu?
Yeah, well, I do believe that there's a large degree of imprinting. It's an interesting word. I would say maybe slightly differently of it's just developing habitual behaviors.
Yes.
And some of those habitual behaviors are driven intentionally, where there's been a designer behind the scenes that says, I will create this ceremony and drink more Ovaltine suddenly becomes part of like the cultural ethos. Other times it just happens. Your story about NPR at noon. So it's something we do think quite a bit about, partly as we think about the changing role of how people watch TV. We've got an interesting, for the first time I think in the last century, we've got an interesting demographic problem. Problem's the wrong word, it's situation here where...
Opportunity.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because now for the first time there's a group larger than baby boomers, the millennials, who are completely and distinctly different even from Generation X. So there's an interesting, as we look at the way people consume television, what their sensitivities are to programming, binge watching, advertising, what devices they watch it on. We've got two groups of people who are the two largest audiences. Baby boomers still the largest consumers of television, millennials the largest group of consumers of digital, and we're right at that nexus. And they're really, really, really different.
Yeah.
So, for us, we're looking at how do we habituate positive behaviors for the experience in the business with millennials, and start to change some of the deeply ingrained habituated behaviors of baby boomers.
Right. Do you think that, because I had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday, do you think that millennials' behaviors and values will change as they get older and, get maybe more established in jobs and have families? And
I think having families and being around families changes everybody, wherever you are in the world.
Yes.
So I think that's inevitable, but I think the core of what makes millennials will stick. They're digital natives. They grew up in a much more kinder, gentler kind of universe than certainly that I did, or going back through baby boomers to the Depression era generation.
They all got trophies.
I hate to stay away from some of these things, because at Hulu, 90% of my team are under the age of 30.
Yeah.
So I think some of
the kind of gross generalizations around millennials has become a very, very, my standpoint as a CEO of the Advertising Research Foundation, very polarizing. It's become a white hot topic.
It is.
I think a lot of people are very offended by that, this overgeneralizing of this giant percent of the population.
I think a lot of the things that are prescribed are somewhat pejorative of millennials.
Judgments, and I agree.
They're a little bit more indictments of something that's new and different. So I try to stay away from that. I don't think there's a lot of any kind of productiveness out of that either. I'm more interested in the ways that millennials, especially the what we call lower millennials, the under 25s, how they view the world in a different way. One of the things that we found, and interestingly, I was speaking with Ron Johnson of Apple and JCPenney, now of Enjoy, and he's seen the same thing, even more starkly.
Before that,
that's right, back in the day, about how for baby boomers, Generation X, there is a distinct investment in solving the problem. You have a broken toaster, you're going to fix the toaster. You buy you go to IKEA, you buy furniture, you are going to put the furniture together, and you may or may not read the directions. That is not valued. That sense of I'm going to accomplish this item. It's a hard task. I will take it on because it's hard. Isn't valued. It's more of I want to get the most out of my life. So I want to have an expert come show me how to do this. I want someone to come fix this and learn something from them.
Yeah.
So I see it as a generation of learning,
We
and
saw,
curiosity.
I completely agree with that, but we saw like such a huge shift among all households and more led by boomers at the time of the recession in 2009, when people started all of a sudden saying, they weren't saying they wanted convenience or they wanted good taste or they were saying, I want to spend time with my family. I don't want to spend time preparing the food or too much time in the kitchen, but I'll make a special meal in order to spend time with my family. We just saw like that whole, a significant values shift that I think is also really connected to what you're speaking of. So you also have an Emmy. I mean, you're so highly accomplished. You have an Emmy. You worked at Sonos before that, which I love, and now you're at Hulu. So such great accomplishments, and you're young. Failure. Let's talk about failure. Face any failure along the way, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in a lot of ways there's been more failures along the way than successes, but a lot of those failures happened in controlled small ways, because I think that's part of the creative process.
How do you control failure?
You build small, you get it in front of small groups of people.
So you lean toward risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the creative place. That's where you'll develop something truly special. It's easy to go and copy something else someone has done or make something 5% better, but for me, that's not fundamentally interesting. It's more I want to bring something new that really changes the way that people see their part of the world and just makes them happier. And that's all going to be about building something people haven't seen. The phrase I like to use is I want to surprise people in unexpected ways. And if I can accomplish that, then we can say, is it a good surprise or a bad surprise? And then hone it and kind of go forward there. And then some of the things that are successes are actually end up being failures too. One of my favorite things I ever worked on was Connect. At Microsoft, bringing motion control into the living room and speech. Ultimately, that didn't succeed. It certainly had a peak. We sold 10 million devices. I think got a Guinness World Book of Records for selling devices in the living room in 1 month. But ultimately, over the period of 5 years, it didn't succeed. So, for me, it's
So how do you deal with that? How do you kind of reconcile that?
It's everything is an opportunity to learn, whether it's an experience that you enjoy, whether it's a failure, whether it's success. And I think the key thing is in both cases to equally be honest with yourself and say, where did I do well? Where did my team do well? Where did I do poorly? Where did my team do poorly? And what can I learn from that? And then also really understanding where luck came in. It's a phrase I like to use in team building is never to confuse being lucky with being good. And it's really difficult sometimes to know whether you are lucky or good, and time is the only way to kind of figure that out. And the same thing happens with failure. Sometimes you're just unlucky.
How do you discern lucky from good?
I think it's about having a kind of central a bit of honesty of kind of what you were intentional about, what you stumbled in. I can feel your Midwestern values coming through our Minnesota thing we have in common. And definitely from that type of farm stock. Yeah. The other thing that I found about failure is you need to talk about it openly. There's a saying that I like that success always needs a paternity test, and failure everybody runs from.
That's good.
And I think it's really about especially around failure, or even where you didn't achieve the success that you want. You think it might have gone well, but you didn't kind of hit where you thought you would. It's having the conversation with people and being open about it. I think that part of it is driven by kind of corporate culture to kind of bury that and hide it. And I think part of it is a little bit of human nature. But I think once for me, it was about getting self-confidence. I believe in myself. I'm good with that. I'm not proving anything to myself. So now I'm very happy to talk about, I didn't go as well as I thought. What do you think about that? Here's my thinking on it. And then getting specific and writing the things down. Getting in front of large groups of people and say, hey, I did this thing. You may have heard about it. Here's what didn't go well. And really kind of think about the framework I use is starting locally with here's what I did wrong. Here's what the people around me did wrong. Here's the externalities that happened to us where unlucky things happen. But just have the conversation, because sometimes you'll be right on these things, sometimes you won't be wrong, but you won't help anybody if you bottle it up, including yourself.
Absolutely. You have to be really prodigious in establishing relationships with senior management. And so how do you navigate how much to tell them about, like, well, I did this wrong, aw shucks, versus all the way to taking too much credit, right? How do you kind of navigate how quickly and how much to inform senior management? What's your approach? And I'm especially curious because you've worked in such different work environments and you've been successful in each one. So I'm thinking you probably had to develop a different skill set depending on the culture of the company.
Yeah, I think the skill set is actually relatively the same. I was really fortunate to have a great mentor. Also a fellow Minnesotan, whose name is coincidentally Ben Kilgore, who's the CTO at Blizzard right now in Activision.
Okay.
And one of the things that he taught me, because I was certainly on the side of, like, I'm going to pound my chest and celebrate when I succeed and run in the corner and hide when you fail or feel bad
We've
about
all
it.
been there,
And it's a little bit of a core, again, to say something you did earlier around core kind of Midwestern values, is it is what it is. So the quicker that you get out and talk about it, the more opportunity you're giving for people to come and help you.
Yes.
So I lend to the far side of transparency, of objective transparency. For me, especially dealing with senior management, they're smart people who want to help. The thing that's a little bit more limited is the time. So you may get, we talked with CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, Satya Nadella when I was there, you might get 10 minutes, you might get 5 minutes. So be concise. Be clear, and get to facts, to analysis, to recommendation super fast. If you can get through those three things, then you have the opportunity for that person to help you, or them to say, oh, that's interesting, I think Sally can help you, you should go talk to Sally. But really hit that, here are the facts, here's my analysis of it, here's my recommendation, or here's the 2 or 3 things I'm thinking, to give them somewhere to go with it.
Yeah, it's one of the things we really like to do at the ARF is provide a stage for people to practice, and then we give them like 10 or 15 minutes, not 45.
Yeah.
And kind of talk about C-suite speed and getting out and practicing. And it was really interesting. We had 2 gentlemen from Kantar Media that actually had a top scoring paper, and they came running up to me at the break. They were going up to present afterward, and they were like, there's like no podium. And it's like 10 minutes. They said, oh my God, we had to ran back to our room and practice. We're like, I don't know if we can do this. And I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to be so much better speaking to senior management now that they had that experience. Because if you can speak to 2,000 people in 10 minutes, even though your heart drops, you're building those skills.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is really, really important in recognizing. I mean, I remember hearing, okay, Gail, go. You have 5 minutes because I have to go get a haircut, right? Because I had a different kind of bosses in my career. And it was like, wow, okay, in 5 minutes I would have to like really organize my thinking.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty specific skill. It sounds like you've really honed those skills.
Yeah, it is, and something I really work on is being concise, because I'm not naturally concise. I'm a person that feels the world. I'm a free-form designer, so I've really worked on it. So it's not a talent; it's a skill developed. So where, I make active efforts on just being concise, of getting ideas written in one page, in the discipline of, hey, you've got one piece of paper. Don't play with the margins. Don't play with the font. Be concise, but be descriptive. And it's the same thing with storytelling. It's about being descriptive so that you can really give people an idea of the surrounding, and they can put themselves into it, almost like method acting.
Interesting.
But you have to do it quickly. And if you watch TV and movies, they're exceptionally good at that. They can do it in a movie trailer. You can watch a 90-second movie trailer, a 30-second lead-in for a TV show, or even a 30-second TV commercial, and you just know the essence of what that product is, whether it's a TV show or movie or product through advertising or a brand. So that type of storytelling is the same thing that you do every single day, especially with when you think about senior management, where it's the time that's becoming the limiting factor.
Right. So let's get back to Hulu just for a minute. What would you say your biggest success of the past year has been?
Oh, this has been a
You
really
look
great
back-
year for Hulu.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. You know, the thing that we're really
The
excited about.
stats are breathtaking in terms of.
It's a fun time right now. The thing that we were super excited about was in the year that we launched the commercial-free product. So for $4 more a month, you can have everything you love about Hulu without commercials. And for us, that was about choice. It's not a statement on advertising, something we still very much believe in, but we wanted to give the viewers choice, and people could vote with their feet and vote with their pocketbooks. And it
Did you
turned.
see people segment themselves out, or did you see it just cutting across all different
The
types of
the segmentation
viewers?
the segmentation for us wasn't super surprising. What was surprising to us was that, and we were nervous about this because advertising is a core part of Hulu. It was also it was the best year that we had for advertising. So in the year that we launched the commercial-free product, it was the best year for advertising
which
as well.
is really interesting.
And satisfaction of both users went up, of the users that use the commercial-free product and the users that use the limited ads product. Their NPS both went up. Part of it was we gave them choice. People feel good about the choice that they made. And then we're able to really, with advertising, deliver the right ads to the right people better. So that was something we're super excited about.
Feels like you, from a consumer standpoint, and you talked earlier about creating good experiences for people, it feels like you really simplified the buying process, at the kind of $11.99 a month, and just make it easy for them.
Yeah, that's what we want to do.
How did you come about doing that as part of your success story?
For us, it starts off with when you think about what's happening. This is where I think about how people act in their lives. When someone comes to Hulu, whether it's on their living room or on their tablet or on their phone, they've already given us the most important piece of information about that experience. They've told us they have low energy. So they're not going to go cook a big meal. They're not going to call a friend on the phone. They're not going to go to the gym. They're not even going to go read a book or a magazine. They've said, I have low energy and I want to be entertained. And to me, the subtitle of that is, don't make me work for this. So we have this relentless focus on, are we making people work? Are we making people work to understand our product offering? Are we making people work to sign up? Are we making it hard for people to try Hulu?
Do you do a lot of competitive analysis?
We don't do a lot of competitive analysis.
Interesting.
Part of it is because it's not clear exactly who our competitors are. I would say the backyard and the guitar in the corner is more of a competitor than anyone in the video space. So we look more, I would say, at where people are doing things new and well, and then decide whether that's something for us or not for us. So we just that relentless focus on just making sure that we're not making people work for any part of Hulu.
Wow, really interesting. Okay, so one prediction for 2016. There's resolutions. It's a little bit of weight in a resolution, but what's a prediction? What do you think is going to happen this year? Whether it's for you personally, for the industry, for your organization.
I think what we're going to see in 2016 is something. It'll be a bit of a cliche, but it's something I do believe that we are entering into the golden age of television, where the content that's available is so unbelievably good, and there's so much of it that.
And you're getting into content as well.
Things that were once niches have now had, which we used to get horrible content because they were too small to serve, are now getting great content, and it's all over the place. And we're starting to see that now happen with movies as well. So we went through a period of, I think, of movies where it was about sequels and building the franchises, comic book to screen, young adult to screen. And I think what we're going to see is a distinct trend started in the second half of 2015 to 2016. We're going to see a lot of the creativity come back into TV, a lot of the creativity come back into movies, because a lot of the influence is shifting back where it needs to be with the creators in that creative vision. So there's more risk-taking on Hollywood, from TV to movies to players like us in the streaming space with Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, with HBO. I think all of this benefits viewers at the end of the day, but it also benefits the creators because there's more places to tell your story and your narrative. So I think we're just going to see more content, more shows, more movies, more creative that we just fall in love with at a visceral level. And I'm super excited about that.
Well, I love that. All right, so you heard it here first from Ben Smith at Hulu, Head of Experiences, and what a great title, and they're just so lucky to have you. I learned so much. I found this really inspiring. It's so great to hear from, first of all, a fellow Midwesterner. I really like there's kind of a core set of values that come through, but I love the advice to know the difference between luck and being good, right? And holding yourself to kind of that high standard, not being afraid to talk about failure, leaning toward risk, placing bets is kind of how I hear you speak of it. I think your advice on how to face senior management in terms of objectivity and kind of objective transparency as you talk about it, but then practicing being pretty succinct. And I mean, the most enlightening thing I think is that we're headed into the golden age of television, and of course you bring substance to that by speaking of content and back to creative and really making a big difference. So it's been just a real pleasure to spend a little bit of time chatting. And
absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Spending time together.
Great.